Hello, we are here for our monthly Open for Business with Terrass Misher.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. We are talking all things podcast this month. And if you're new here, this is our monthly, we call it like an online article review. We have an article over on our Open for Business Facebook page that you can review, go over. It's all about podcasts this month. And we typically like to have a guest speaker, so who better than Raz here, who is the podcast guru, to talk about podcasts for business, how you can start one, tips and tricks, and answer all your questions. So like I said, we meet here on the last Wednesday of every month here at noon, right here on Facebook Live. We would love for you to engage, interact, leave your questions, comments, and feel free to do so even after the live is finished, and we will make sure that we're checking it and answering you. We want to hear about your favorite podcasts as well, so if you have those, just leave them in the comment section. We want to check those out, but let's go ahead and start podcasts. Okay, so just tell me just give me a brief overview of your view of podcasts.
Podcasts are great.
Yeah.
They
are great.
They're great.
What would be your number one? So podcasts.
Yes.
I mean, we see recommendations on Facebook. I always see like, this is top 10, or I just got through all of these. What are the newest recommendations? But from a business standpoint, how can we utilize podcasts, and how can businesses really say, okay, these are the podcasts that exist. This is my business. How can I merge the two and use this to my benefit?
Mm-hmm. From my point of view, right? Mm-hmm. Podcasts are great for businesses for a lot of reasons. Mm-hmm. The biggest one that just comes to top of mind is just the engagement with your audience, mm-hmm. right? It is not like if you just go on a Facebook Live or do a YouTube video. Sometimes that's just a one-way communication. With mm-hmm. podcasting, you're kind of envelop yourself into that person's life in a lot of ways, because you are with them in the kitchen while they're cooking, you're with them on the road while they're driving, you're with them with your clients or potential clients while they're working out, just everywhere. You kind of, depending on what you're talking about,
and you're referring to podcasts and going with guests.
Well, with guests or just by yourself. So I just interviewed a lady earlier. She's a nutritionist, Miss Carolyn Guilford, mm-hmm. and she would have a great podcast because she would be able to tell people about nutritional information and how to live a better life with their health on a podcast. And then you become, while the person's cooking, they could be listening to your podcast, Oh,
I see. Okay,
so just
great.
Making better decisions. Yeah, so that's the engagement I'm talking about.
Okay, and I have noticed that podcasts are more of a mobile thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, people are just kind of, with social media and with things like, even live Facebook, you've got to be there to watch and whatnot. But with podcasts, I mean, you can be on a run. You can be, like you said, in your kitchen. You can be in the car. It really doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. You can take them everywhere. Right. And that to me is the huge thing, is, the mobility of your business going with people everywhere. Mm-hmm. For that matter.
And that's a huge key to the rise in podcasting, mm-hmm. because it is mobile, and because we have cell phones now, mm-hmm. that we can take them with us. So a podcast technically comes from, at first it was on the iPod.
Right.
People will upload it to their website. You could download it to your iPod, mm-hmm. and that was a podcast. But now podcasts are everywhere. It's either on YouTube or it's on, your phone, your cell phone, always in your back pocket.
And one of the things the article for this month touches on is the fact that podcasts do have such great SEO. And just kind of touching on that. So, your podcast lives on a hosting site, correct? Mm-hmm. And then you can choose to upload that then to iTunes. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. Mm-hmm. iTunes, Spotify, whichever different platforms you decide that you want your podcast to live on. Mm-hmm. You can also put it on your website. Like you said, you can put it on YouTube. So the mm-hmm. SEO is there. Social media.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So you can share it on all these different things. And kind of getting into that hosting website. So I just learned about this actually. When you go to start a podcast, you're not actually just recording audio and then downloading it to iTunes. You are using a hosting site, mm-hmm. correct? Mm-hmm. what are your favorite hosting sites? Because when I research them, there's a million out there.
So the main one that everybody uses, most people use, is kind of the most recommended, is Libsyn, and it's because they have such a high rate of not failing.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
But so with Libsyn, it could be anywhere from, I want to say, I might be wrong in the numbers, but anywhere from like $5 a month to hundreds of dollars a month.
Right.
So that, depending on how much you're publishing, that can get out of hand. But they're a great website to start with. One of my favorites right now is something called Podbean.
Yes, that's the one that I looked into. I think that one's around like $12 a month, maybe.
It is. Or if you pay annually, it's like, you get, it's like $10 a month.
Right, right.
Annually. And you also get a mini website with Podbean.
Okay.
So
cool.
You can send people directly to that, and they'll see all the list of your previous podcasts.
And so then, like I said, from there, that's kind of your hosting site. And from there, then you can upload to iTunes, Spotify. And with those hosting sites like Podbean, it's a free to put those out there on iTunes and Spotify, correct? Okay, cool. So for anyone really looking to start a podcast, what would you say the first thing? What would you say the number one thing? If you're like, I want to start a podcast or run business, what do you think the number one thing to do would be?
Doing research on a great topic.
Okay.
Because there are so many out there. You can't just say I'm going to do a marketing show or a show on, selling. You can't just say that. You have to drill down. Like, are you going to do women entrepreneurs? Are you going to do women entrepreneurs in Savannah? Are you going to do women entrepreneurs in Savannah in the restaurant industry?
Right.
You have to drill down to something very, very specific in order to gain any traction.
So the more specific, the better.
The more specific, the better.
And you think that helps with the target audience? Yes. I know that with podcasts, one thing that I've noticed is that the audiences are specific and they're loyal. It seems that, and people like the same genres of podcasts. If somebody likes a self-help podcast, typically you see like 10 on their top 10 favorite list. If they like law podcasts, you see a ton of different law podcasts, sports, even anything of that nature. But that's good to know, the more specific, the better.
Definitely. Another thing too is to just plan for the long haul, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to take, you might get a little bit of traction the first 3 episodes, and then it's going to fall off. And then you hit a dip, and you have to like just keep fighting through that dip before it rises again.
Right.
So there's a little saying that, what is it? What's the saying? The most podcasts stop after 7 episodes.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you can make it past 7, you're already in the top percentile.
Okay.
Of podcasts, definitely.
So would you say that you need to, I read this online as well, that you need to have like 4 in your back pocket before you even release?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm working with a client now, and he's trying to get like 15 in his back pocket.
Really? Okay. What's the advantage of that?
So for him, he's an attorney. They're in a, attorney group. So they get really busy at certain times of the year. So they don't want the podcast to stop with a weekly episode just because they're busy.
Right.
So they have several back there. Also, the advantage of launching with like multiple is that people get a chance to binge, and it makes it seem like so if you launch with 4 episodes versus launching with 1, you launch with 4 episodes, then it's, people have a chance to binge listen. And then it makes it look like you're more popular than you are.
That's so true. Okay. Wow.
And as far as SEO, so iTunes is the second biggest search engine after Google.
After Google.
Yeah.
Okay.
So people if they go to iTunes and search for anything, they go to Apple, the Play Store, whatever, and search for anything, then your podcast will pop up and your brand and your business name.
And like we said, it's free to put those podcasts onto iTunes once you're paying for your hosting site, which you have to have to upload them to iTunes, which is a funny concept because in my mind, before I had done some research on podcasts, to me, it was like record and then upload to iTunes and then Spotify. And it was like, no, there's a hosting website very similar to, I would say, like WordPress, using that as your host for your website. And then you can kind of choose how you, where you put that and how you advertise it and stuff. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was the equipment. So from my research, it looks like there's really, you want quality. Obviously, everybody wants, you don't want to have terrible sound or anything. But to get that, it doesn't sound too expensive and too pricey. What would you say?
No, it's not. I don't think it is anyway. To get started, you're going to want to get There's something called an Audio Technica ATR 2100. This is the main one that everybody recommends because you have a USB port with it.
Okay, that sounds expensive. Didn't see that one on the list.
Sorry. Yeah, that's the main one. Because it sounds great.
Yeah.
It's like $70 or $80.
Okay.
And if you plan to do a podcast for longer than a week, you want to have great sound.
Right. Okay.
And it's going to give you some great sound.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But you can just go to Walmart and get one. It'll be better than just using your phone or your mic.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of what I found. If you can do just get even a mic that goes into your phone, that is better than just talking into your phone. And,
yes.
The more quality, the better. But it isn't something where you have to have a huge production of equipment and top of the line to make it happen.
Right.
It definitely is doable. And then topics. So say you have chosen your theme for your podcast, and then you're thinking of different topics for each show.
Mm-hmm.
How close do those need to be to that overall theme, would you say?
It depends on your listeners and your audience. So starting out, depending on how big your audience is, you just have to go with your gut and what your expertise is in, because that's going to get the most listeners.
Right.
And then after you gain some listeners, then you can start to adjust and see what they really want to hear more about. You can look and see so it's basically just testing, honestly.
Okay.
Once you have a theme, you have that small niche that you want to go after, then you can adjust and see what topics they want to learn about, whether it's, whatever it is.
Right.
Whatever
Okay. Cool. Let's see. Okay. And like you said that you mentioned the dip, and then you mentioned that after 7 people can be cut off.
I've fallen prey to it. I've had clients fall prey to it.
So what do you do? What's the big ta-da? Do you just keep going? Do you switch gears a little? What do you do?
Just keep going.
Okay.
Yeah, just like in business, just like in life. Anytime you want to do something that's going to be a change for the better in your life, you're gonna hit that wall, right? Whether that's starting training for a marathon or just eating better or working out, you're gonna hit a wall after a couple weeks, and that's when change happens. So it's just keep going,
And would you recommend one thing, and with everything, kind of taking a step back, looking at it and saying, okay, how's it going? What's going on? What are the problems? What are the kinks I need to work out? But would you divert from those initial, you've chosen a topic, or multiple topics, you've chosen a theme. Would you divert from that and change a little bit to adapt and to fix your problems? Or would you kind of stay true to, this is my goal. This is the target audience that I want, and I might not get it right now, but I'm going to still work towards it.
Me personally, I would adapt.
Okay.
I change all the time. I'm always having new ideas anyway. So personally, I would adapt.
Yeah.
But some people have that in them where they just know this is going to hit. So if that's your thing and you want to just stick with one topic and one subject, then you have to make sure that you're out there promoting it.
Right.
To the right audiences. That's getting on. So a great way to make your podcast grow is to get on other podcasts. Yeah. As guests.
I've heard that. I've heard to have guests and to be a guest. What would you say are the pros to both?
Pros. So the pros to having guests is that you get to meet incredible people.
Yeah.
Right. So the way I met Marjorie and got involved with Carriage Trade, right, is because I had her on the radio show.
Yeah.
And from that, I've met so many other people because you guys are just everywhere. Right. So
Marjorie specifically.
Right. So that's what for me, that's the pro, is just increasing your network and leveling up your network. Because I'm not from Savannah, but now I know a lot of people in Savannah because of my radio show and podcast.
Absolutely.
The benefit to being a guest is that you're getting in front of a audience that already listens to podcasts.
Right. Yeah. So you're already hitting that audience, and then they may come and start to follow you.
Right. If they like you at all, they'll definitely click follow.
That's so true. And then other ways to promote your podcast. You can be a guest. Obviously, we talked about the SEO advantages of being able to share it across multiple platforms. What other ways would you recommend to promote your podcast?
Getting it everywhere. But what I like to do is kind of like a little trickle down effect, right? Maybe I'll coin that one day. But like a trickle down effect where you start with a video on YouTube.
Yeah.
Just record the whole podcast on YouTube with the video, and then you can take the audio from that and make it the podcast, the audio podcast on iTunes. Okay. And then you can take the video clips and promote those on social media. So you're doing one recording, but from that recording you can get dozens potentially a post on different websites.
And something that we've talked about quite a few times on Open for Business is, the fact that different platforms and different channels require different media. So, obviously for iTunes, it is all about audio. But like Raz said, YouTube, that's about video. Facebook, a lot of times people like to see video. They like to see images. So if you can accompany your podcast with photos, with videos, it's helpful for promoting it. So that's a great idea, not just limiting it to the audio, but actually taking the audio from video. That way you can promote it across multiple platforms to multiple people in different ways, and really kind of customizing your promotions the way that those platforms typically work. We don't typically put anything on Facebook without, photos and video, because people like to see them. They don't like to just read words all the time on Facebook, and definitely not Instagram. Instagram is all about the visuals. So
right.
To properly promote it, that is a helpful tip. So what are your favorite podcasts?
Oh man, favorite podcast. A great classic podcast is what's the one with Guy Raz from NPR? How I Built This. Have you heard of that one yet? It's a great, very inspirational business podcast with people like Angie's List, like just really big name people.
Yeah.
GoPro, Tom Shoes. He has them all on there. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Really?
I'm
actually wondering because I'm not a podcast listener.
Really?
Yeah. So I listen, and the main reason for that is because my phone storage. That is the main reason.
Okay.
But I listen to, when I can't go to church, I always listen to my church's podcast online.
Awesome, yeah.
But I am trying to get as many recommendations as possible, because that is one of my
What are you interested in?
Well, I mentioned earlier, self-help things. I just love motivational things. And motivational talks, whether that is in business or health or faith related, any of those, I love them all. Just people motivating others. I don't love comedy as much, but I have heard the big sports one, whatever it is. Or is it Barstool Sports or something? I don't know what it was. I remember I was in someone's car and I heard that one. And it's obviously so funny. They're doing a great job, whatever they're doing.
They are.
But it wasn't
I'm not really big into sports, so I don't know too many sports ones. Another great one that I always recommend is a business inspirational one. It's called Creating Disney Magic.
Wow.
It is really good.
Okay.
It's by
Love Disney.
Yeah, of course, right?
Yeah.
It's by a former executive of it. He was the executive operations over 300,000 people, or however many that is. But he's a coach and a trainer on just time management and all kinds of. It's really good.
Okay,
it's
cool.
a great podcast. He's had over 1 million downloads. Last year he broke 1 million downloads. So
wow.
Yeah, so he's doing really well.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, we would love to hear all of y'all's favorite podcasts as well. And any questions that you all may have. Like I said, I'm in the market for as many podcast recommendations as I can get, because I'm really hoping that that's going to become my new thing, is to just be educated through podcasts. Yep. I mean, I've heard of so many people, just the things that are out there for people to learn are just, and it's not even in your industry either. Right. You can really just dive into a million different things in the podcast realm.
Right.
But
and I would want to know more about. I want recommendations for local.
Yeah.
Like Georgia low country podcasts.
Right. That's cool. I just actually trying to remember. I met someone the other day at the Bethesda clay shooting tournament who had a wildlife podcast. Not really? Wildlife. It was more of fishing and hunting and clay shooting, and that one sounded really interesting. I'll have to look up the name of that one. But if you all didn't know, Raz does Savannah Business Showcase, which is a great one. Obviously, you just had Carolyn. You've had, the best of the best in Savannah.
Yeah, get in there, yeah.
You always have the best people on your show.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to just hear what other people are doing in the community, and just to kind of dive into different markets that you might not be aware of.
Right.
Through just coming into your studio and hearing different things and LFI and stuff. I've lived here for 24 years, but there's so much that I just didn't know, and a lot of that has come from yours.
Really?
Yeah, it really has, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know that. So that is a great one if you all need recommendations. And we're going to post other ones here in the comment section because I do want to have those for your reference as well. But thank you so much, Raz, for coming on.
Thank you for having me on. This was fun.
Of course. Yeah, it was fun. I'm glad I got to learn a bit more about podcasts. And we will be back next month in November, the last Wednesday, again at noon. We won't announce or release that topic until November begins, which is tomorrow. But stay tuned for that. We'll be back next month. Again, leave your questions, your favorite podcast series, any comments you may have, any questions about starting a podcast. Raz and myself can hopefully answer all of those questions. And I hope that y'all have a happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, I totally forgot.
Are you going to dress up?
I have a box of costumes. And I'm hoping that something in there just pops out to me because I haven't actually planned it out yet. What about you and your little boy?
Yeah, he's going to be the Flash, and my daughter's going to be a genie.
Okay, genie. Yes,
yeah.
I've been a genie before. That's like the best costume ever. What are you going to be?
I'm not. I'm going to be the cameraman.
Oh, come on. Cameraman's got to dress up.
That's right. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking. Actually, I'm going to leave it as a surprise. Well, I'll announce what I was for Halloween next time when it's in for business because I just think it's going to be that great. So, but I hope that you all have so much fun this evening if you're celebrating. And thank you again, Raz.
Thank you.